Okay, so I will start by showing off like the hazards. So I've got everything like labeled of what it does for like the designers in the um, like test development environment. So I have the mud puddle. It's got an open variable to like handle the speed reduction. So you can see you get to a maximum of 9 kilometers a second. You go into the puddle, it goes down to 2. That was just like over exaggeration testing for like for purposes of testing to see if it works. The oil spill, um, ignore using character movement. I forgot to change that. It doesn't slow down the player or anything anymore. It adds the widget to the screen that just like covers the player's view. That only works once. So when you run into it, it adds the oil spill, which fades over time. And then like during the game, during the levels, as you go over them, it's set to do like only work once. Because in some levels the puddle like the oil spills were really big. And if you were running through it normally, like just as you were, so if I was running through it like this, and if you jumped and landed in it, it would apply the oil spill effect again, which we didn't feel was very fair because for the purpose of speedrunning, you would be like running and dashing and sprinting, so you can get to like quite high speeds. These two were never used. The speed boost is like just as it says, so it gives you a like base speed boost. So for example, I ran through it, go from 9 kilometers to 13, and then it returns after a certain amount of time. It has open variables to handle how long the speed boost is lasts for, and for like how much it increases the speed by. Slow time is it has open variables for slow duration and slow amount. So if I was to run through this, it's going to slow it down really quite a lot, because I think this was set to zero point 0.2 for a second, which okay, um, yeah, so a second over zero point 0.2 seconds. My maths isn't firing right now, but it makes sense for how long it was. And then the coins, as you can see in the not that button. Was it Shift F1? As you can see in the corner up here, it displays how many coins the player has. So you pick them up. There was 4 there, going from 12 to 16. It has an open variable for how many coins to add, or how much each coin adds. It's going to be at a baseline of 1 coin per pickup. Yeah. So if a designer decided that they wanted to add 1 huge coin, they could decide that it would add 5 coins, for example. I think that's it for them things. And then here we have the invincibility pickup spawner. So this only works if this was never implemented. So if the designers decided that they wanted to use this in the shop menu, which I will show in a moment, it would this would hold would be placed throughout the level, and as the player after the player has bought the invincibility power up, it would then where it is, it would begin player, gets everything to check to see if the player has bought the invincibility upgrade. If they have, it will it runs to spawn the pickup, which that's where it actually fully gets the boolean to see if it's true. If it is, it spawns the invincibility actor at the at the location of the invincibility spawner actor. And then so from here, it's if you collide with it, it is equal to the character. If it's true, it runs invincibility collected, which is in the character, which is also bound to H for testing purposes, which I forgot to unbind. But it was never used anyway, which runs the macro. And this is in a macro because it's using a delay, because delays don't work in functions and all of that. So sets active invincibility and disables it after a certain amount of time, and then if invincibility is active, you take no damage, but you would still get hit forward by the bull. Cool, let's close these. So we have the music controller, which has a start time, the sound to play, and the volume multiplier. So for example, at the moment, if we play, there is no music at all, and this is where I hope my audio is set up correctly. So now in here, if I in the sound to play, we were using the flamenco sounds. So if we use flamenco chase, for example, start time of 2 seconds, volume multiplier of 1. We play it. So this starts 2 seconds in actually. I don't think this was ever fully updated. Should have been using this. Okay, well, the one I made used this. Someone has changed it to use these, which I was unaware of, I believe. Actually, I may have done this. Yeah, I might have done this. So no, I did do this. Sorry, I did this because I was changing it to make it so if the designers wanted to change the audio at any point in the level, they would be able to. But I never fully was able to implement that because this was a last-minute crunch put together. Because some of the designers wanted the audio to start at different times. So if I put the volume multiplier to 0.5 and my numlock is not on, 0.5 and start time to 0. So it starts at the normal time now, and it's a lot quieter. If we put this down to 0.1 just for example, and the start time to 10. It's very quiet now, and I believe it started 10 seconds in. Or it should have done at least. Yeah, so that's the music controller, and we have the joyous player control manager. This was mainly created for the purpose of handling the max walk speed in each of the levels. It was first created for the designers to be able to easily change how fast a character walks without having to go into the blueprint and change anything to avoid merge issues with the source control. And it kind of turned into being able to test everything, and it ended up being used in ways it shouldn't have really have been used, because we have I believe Thomas Worrell made a actors. Nope. Am I blind? The game manager, which is in every single level. It holds all of the save datas and things. But I think some things got a bit confused and they ended up being added. The testing purposes of them being in the player control manager ended up the full functionality being get my words out. Let me try again. The things that were being tested in the player control manager ended up being fully implemented into the player control manager instead of into the game manager, and I believe that was just a communication issue on our part, but everything worked okay. It was just handling references that ended up being a bit confusing, but we managed to get through everything with that. So the main purpose of this was to, like I said, just to try everything. So for example, invincible owned. So if I check that, this should now spawn the invincibility actor in it. So if we hit play, there we go. The invincibility actor is here now. So just to showcase how that works and how the player control manager works. So it handled the how long the duration of the invincibility was for testing purposes again. You could set to see if glass heart was owned or not. So if we hit play now, we only have 2 hearts in the bottom left hand corner instead of 3. What else? The slow time duration and slow time max duration. So that is with in the UI, the bar at the bottom. So if we run and jump and hit Q, the slow time bar goes down. It has a minimum and a maximum of 2 seconds. So if we set the duration to 10 and the max duration to 10, we play this now, and when we can move, we jump, hit Q, it's going down a hell of a lot slower and it's lasting a lot longer. But also with it being at 10 seconds, it will also take a lot longer to fully regenerate than it would at 2 seconds. The base values for these are set at 2 seconds as a like ballpark idea for what I personally was thinking, but it was still there, open for the designers to play around with things to see how they would like to get their levels set up correctly. So the starting momentum, so for example, these are all upgrades: the Invincible, Glass Heart, Slow Time, Momentum, and the Momentum Recovery, which I can't show you because I would have to load into a level, and it takes quite a long time to load into the levels because shaders. So starting momentum, if we put the starting momentum to 100 and for 2 seconds, so if we play, the maximum movement speed at the start should be faster, but I feel like this is broken. If I put this to 500 for 2 seconds, for example. Okay, cool. That ended up not working properly. Never mind. Sorry. So play mode is there for momentum recovery. So after the player gets hit by the ball, it works in the aspect of how long it takes for the player to get back to their maximum momentum. So the maximum movement speed is what, 9 kilometers a second. So if the player was hit, their movement speed could drop down to like 6 kilometers a second, and it would take 2 seconds for them to fully get back up to the 9 kilometers. The momentum recovery was there, so when, like, as the player went through being hit, if they got hit by the ball, they'd be able to recover faster after being hit, instead of him being hit and then it being a likelihood of being hit by the ball again in the time that they've been thrown forwards and their momentum's coming back. Play mode this was purely for the designers testing their levels in the editors. So if play mode wasn't checked, the ball would not move. This was just mainly for checking if if they felt like it was a good amount of time to get through their level without the threat of being chased by the ball. Tomato throw strength is purely like how hard the tomato throws. So we have it at 4 seconds at the minute. If I have it just above the target, it doesn't quite hit. So if we move this up to 7, that's apparently as far as I put the slider. If we aim it just above it, as you can see, it's going over it now, but it's hitting the center of the crosshair. But the main issue with this was that when you were close to things, sometimes it didn't actually hit the target. Maybe it was the mesh before the artists got everything finished, but apparently it does work. Never mind, ignore me on that part. So yeah, it just controls how hard the player throws the tomato. This was added because some of the designers felt that it was thrown too weak and that it didn't quite meet the crosshair. It went slightly below it, and it was mainly again just to deal with fair enough. To deal with like making sure the tomato hit the crosshair in the right location. Fast mode is and OHKO mode, or one hit knockout. They're both options that are enabled in the options menu. So for example, fast mode, if we enable this and start, everything's the same, but everything moves a lot quicker, which means the ball would move quicker as well. This is more purely for the speedrunners and everyone who want everything to go quick instead of going for the slower paced normal gameplay. It also made it so the levels were a lot more the player had to be a lot more reactive through the levels because everything was moving so much faster. And OHKO mode is like as explained, like you have one heart in the bottom corner now. Yeah, you have one heart in the bottom corner. So yeah, you get hit once. That's it. That's game over. The other things that I have done were the main menu, or not the main menu. Sorry. Menu. So this shouldn't take too long to load. Okay, so if we hit play now, so we have the menu. I added the controller support here. This works with keyboard arrow keys as well. So the only ones it works with are play, levels, and shop. And asset zoo, because that loads into a level. Oh, no, sorry, it works with everything on this menu. So it comes into the level select menu, but you can leave it, but you cannot get back into it, which is something that I couldn't figure out. I spent a long time doing this, too long to be honest, and I was told after I had done this that there is like a input plugin for DualShock controllers. There's an easy way and a plugin to deal with adding controller support to UIs, which would have been wonderful to know before I spent over a week doing all of the controller support. But it works. The only downside is I never got it fixed with the mouse overs, so they just go white. But you can get back into the levels again by pressing like enter or A on the levels button. The shop is also like takes input. This is, and I never managed to implement the information on mouse over on like focus. Glass heart explains what it does. Score multiplier explains what it does. Slow time again, as it each one mouse overs, it shows what it does. All of these were like incredibly open for the designers to handle controlling and changing. Let me show you real quick. So in the shop here, actually let me open this one as well. So and cool, so if I compile this was there originally so the designers could see everything and how it worked. So in here in edit me, it has the upgrade price and the multiplier. So every time you purchase glass heart's a bad example because it's only bought once, but score multiplier costs 5, it's the upgrade multiplier is 1, so you buy it once, the price will become 10, you buy it again, the price will become 20, you buy it again, the price will become 40, so on and so forth. It's that's how I decided to set it up. It is there for the designers to change as they see fit, but I don't think anyone actually touched any of this. This was set up exactly how I left, or how I gave it to them. So if they wanted to add, wanted me to add more, and they wanted to change the order of anything, they could just hit the drop down. So if they wanted the reduce critical state second from the top, reduce critical state, and change it and changes everything to what it should be. Slow time upgrade, it only works for the slow time button. Momentum increase, again, increase starting momentum. Reduce critical state is momentum regen, that only works with this button. And then there's the upgrade information, so if the designers decided they wanted to change what the text said, they could make it say, I changed this text. And it will update, and then I did try... I did try and make everything that I created with the designers in mind to keep everything as simple as possible without them having to manually go into here to come into here to change everything that they need to in here. And The reason I did that is because if I was one of the designers, that's exactly how I would like to have things given to me, instead of having to go rooting around in everything and digging to find one thing just to play around with one value. I'd rather it be easy to find and accessible. Again, so like with the audio controller, for example, the sound to play isn't open, like it's an exposed variable. So when it's in the level, all they have to do is pick the file that they want to use. I believe that's everything other than like bug fixes and other parts of UI, but I've covered all of that in my forum posts. So thank you.